Philosophical questions about human nature and the human condition. Today's question: how much does language influence thinking? Each of us is born with the ability to communicate. Or should I say, the human species has survived because of collaboration and communication. That's one of the key reasons why, if we look at science, for example, why we are an apex predator. We are on the top of the food chain, like on the top. There's nothing that can eat us, really. Well, animals can eat us, but it's more like, if we look at what we would say is more dangerous than us on the planet level, there is nothing. We have conquered this world as a human species in terms of science. And that's because of thinking and collaboration. By collaborating together, we can build empires, build cities, roads. We can pass on information to our children. Animals don't really do that. Well, they do by teaching, but it's not at our level. Language is very important. Now the question is, how does language affect thinking? First of all, people who can't speak, as in use their voice box, be it disability or as other reasons, can learn to communicate through writing. They can speak through braille, through body language. They can also lip read, so they can communicate. So humans just find ways, no matter what disability somebody has, they will find a way. Morse code, like, we have many ways. And if we look at the world as a whole, each country has their own tribes, and each tribe has its own language, and each language has its own like sub languages, like little slang things here and there. And I guess you could say at that point that everybody has a language. But then it's, how much does that affect thinking? That's the question. Is one language better for thinking than another language? If I spoke Koine Greek and somebody else spoke Latin or German, which out of those languages is probably better for thinking? The English language has a lot of words. A lot. Currently, we have words for almost everything. In some languages, like mine, certain words can define various things. Like, one word can define an emotion or a physical object or like a time of day. Like, it depends how you're using the sentence and where you put it. Whereas in English, everything has its own separate word. I don't think language affects thinking whatsoever. Even if you come from a language where you have to say a whole long sentence to express one word or feeling, you're still expressing that feeling. Even if you come from a country which speaks a certain language, or you learn a language that has every word described for every feeling, emotion, action, place, or whatever, you can still express it. Language plays zero part in thinking. But if you want to go a step higher, if we're talking about increasing your knowledge through thinking, then the more. But even that, There are ways you can, without being rude, dumb down something so somebody can understand it at a higher level. You know, and a good example is science. If you really go deep enough, there's a lot of jargon that if you listen to, you'll be like, what is this? What is this syndrome and this chemical, this and that? There's so much that happens in science, but we can be taught it because it can be simplified and simplified. It's like fractions. What's the lowest common denominator? What's the lowest common fraction? You can always bring it down to a level that can explain everything. You can even try and understand quantum mechanics by giving an example, summarizing it, using various symbolisms and various ways of speaking to make someone who doesn't understand what the word of quantum might mean in their language. But if you make them understand the bigger picture and dance around it, eventually they'll understand what you're saying, even though they don't know what words you're saying per se, like the specific keywords here and there. Language and thinking. They're not linked. I'm sorry, they're not. If you can speak two languages, you understand. Your thinking does not change based upon the language you speak. And you can also think in both languages. And sometimes you can think something better in a different language, which is normally the most dominant language. But that can work vice versa. So let's say between English and French. If I was mainly a French speaking person and I learned English, I would think in French. But then later down in my life, if English became my main language, I would maybe think in English more, but my thinking wouldn't change. How I explain it would change. Yeah. Language does not affect or influence thinking in any way. Maybe in the communication of it, but in the internalization of feelings and emotions, maybe you cannot express the words you can say, but you can dance around the words by explaining how they affect you, for example. And that can be the exact same thing as saying certain words. I know because I speak two languages. What do you think? Comment down below. Thanks for watching.